We are here for championship case number 6. I think we're on number 6. I don't know. I guess I've lost count at this point. We do this for all 16 playoff drivers, so no, this is not a prediction. However, Chase Elliott was my preseason championship pick, so I guess that is a factor here. But anywho, back to the point. We do this for all 16 playoff drivers where we kind of break down what they've done this season so far. We look at the playoff schedule, how it favors them, where they could struggle, and how they can get to Phoenix and get to that championship 4. And then, of course, how they could end up being the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series champion. So if you've missed your favorite driver so far, there's a playlist. Go check it out. We're going to do it for all 16. As I said, let's get into Chase Elliott's 2025. 1 win this season. It came at his home track of Atlanta. 7 top 5s, 12 top 10s, 385 laps led. He currently sits second in the points, 42 points behind teammate William Byron. First point, especially for Chase Elliott, might I add, playoff points. You need them. There's no such thing as too many, but for Chase Elliott, you have too few right now. My friend only has 6 playoff points to his name, the fewest by far out of everyone we have talked about. So whether that's winning Richmond or Daytona, whether that's finding a way to win the regular season championship and get 15 bonus points as opposed to 10, whatever you got to do, Chase Elliott needs bonus points desperately if he wants to advance far in these playoffs. This also means with their lack of playoff points compared to a Byron, a Larson, a Hamlin, even an SVG, their lack of playoff points puts them in a tougher position where when we talked about those previous drivers, we said, oh, they can afford a mulligan in the early rounds. Well, Chase Elliott really can't because of that lack of playoff points. So let's look at this first round. It's not as open and shut as our previous mentioned drivers because, as I said, they don't have those points. But something that this 9 team has going for them is consistency. They're consistently finishing races. 0 DNFs on the season. They had a season worst of 26th this past weekend at Watkins Glen. Other than that, every single finish this year has been a top 20. And that might be enough to get out of the first round. And obviously their goal is not to run 20th every week, but they don't make mistakes. They don't have problems. We've seen Kyle Larson. They crashed themselves. They've had mechanical failures. Christopher Bell has had his share of issues. William Byron had a horrid stretch where they ran out of fuel, where they crashed, where they had a mechanical failure. Well, Chase Elliott doesn't have that. They haven't crashed this year. They haven't had a mechanical failure. They haven't had some drastic impact on a race that puts them 130 laps down. This team finishes races, and they finish them on the lead lap, or they finish them in the top 20, and that is a big thing for these early rounds. Obviously, in the later round, you're going to have to do some better finishing. Chase Elliott at Darlington in the next-gen era, kind of the story that I just told. Outside of a 36th place finish in the 2022 Southern 500, all top 20s, top 15s, all top 15 actually. A few top 5s in there, a couple of top 10s. He had a top 10 back in the spring. But here is the big thing. Lack of stage points at Darlington for Chase Elliott. Only 7 stage points over 7 races in the next-gen car at Darlington. They're going to have to get some stage points. I don't care if it's a single one in 10th place. If it's winning the stage, obviously, that's ideal. But they have got to find a way to get themselves some stage points. Kind of to the SVG point that we made a few days ago, they cannot afford bad qualifying efforts. They've had a few of those this season where they have not exactly been on it. I think Bristol was a prime example. Chase Elliott's great at Bristol, but they qualified like 18th and they finished 15th. So qualifying, I think that's going to be a key for this team. If they can qualify well, keep themselves up front, score stage points, then they'll be fine. Second race is Gateway. Elliott has only raced here twice. Remember, he was suspended in 2023 and did not race at Gateway. As I said with Byron, Hendrick Motorsports has kind of struggled at Gateway. Elliott's finishes are 13th and 21st, though in the 2024 race, he did score points in both stages. So he's got that going for him, I guess. But once again, this first round, I'm not too concerned about them advancing, but if they have their first DNF of the season in this round with their lack of playoff points, that's where it's going to get really tricky. But this last race I actually like for him. While his 15th place finish back in the spring at Bristol was his worst finish in the next-gen car at Bristol, Chase Elliott's really, really good at this track. He has a couple of runner-ups. He's finished top 10 in every other race in the next-gen car, and even in the previous car, led a lot of laps, was up front, contending for wins, won the Bristol All-Star race in 2020. But kind of similar to the previous points, not a lot of stage points scored, only 5 laps led in the next-gen car, so it's kind of the same story with his team. They're still finishing races, they're still doing decent, but not leading laps, not up front as consistently, and that's something they have to do in these playoffs. But for this early round, I'm not too concerned as long as they don't have issues, because I think Darlington's a top 10 opportunity. Gateway, as long as they survive, they don't struggle massively, they'll get a top 15. In Bristol, I think they have a great shot at a top 5, or dare I say even a win, if they're able to compete with Larson and Hamlin. So I think they're going to be able to get out of this first round, but they cannot afford any mistakes. Then we got New Hampshire, Kansas, and the Roval. Actually not a bad round for Chase Elliott. His weakest race is this first race, New Hampshire. His finishes there are 2nd, 18th, and 12th. And he's actually led laps in 2 of the 3 races at New Hampshire. We just talked about how he's kind of struggled to score stage points at some of these tracks. Run up front, lead laps. Well, New Hampshire, he's led laps in 2 of the 3 races, and he's scored stage points in 4 of the 6 races in the next-gen car at New Hampshire. The finishes may not be the prettiest with an 18th in there. That's not great, and you're probably not even going to be able to afford that in this round if they don't pick up more playoff points. But if they can finish 12th, obviously that runner-up in 2022, that's ideal if they don't win. But I think if they can just put together a decent race here, like a top 15, that's good enough, because these next 2, they're going to be top 5. There's been a lot of talk. Chase Elliott struggles at the 1.5 mile intermediate tracks. Everyone's kind of talked about that ever since 2023, but Kansas is by far the exception. Chase Elliott leads laps at Kansas. He runs up front. He scores stage points. There's something about Kansas that just fits his style, something that he has figured out at this track, and they are very good at this racetrack. Only 2 finishes outside of the top 10 at Kansas, and it was a 15th and 11th. As I said, he's led laps in 3 of these races in the next-gen car. Has a couple of top 5s, and in fact, this spring, that 15th place finish, which was his worst finish at Kansas in the next-gen, they finished 2nd in stage 1, 2nd in stage 2. Were the second best car compared to Kyle Larson, but I think it was a pit road issue that they had, like the car fell off the jack or something. They got put back in traffic, and they never operated the same. So if they can have a mistake-free race in this one, they can qualify well, they, dare I say, are they a contender for the win here? It's going to be tough to beat Larson. It may even be tough to beat some of the Toyotas. Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace, and Tyler Reddick are usually good here. But I think Elliott's got a great shot at worst a top 5. I think this is a really good track for him to score a lot of points and potentially offset maybe a not-so-great weekend at New Hampshire. And then they go to the Roval. Chase Elliott, I believe, is the winningest driver at the Roval. Tied for at least. But he's won there twice. He's only finished outside of the top 10 2 times, one of which he led the majority of the last stage before getting wrecked on a late race restart. And the other was the year that him and Kevin Harvick had their scrap, I guess we can call it that. He's led laps in all but 2 Roval races. He scores stage points, and stage points at road courses are very tough to kind of gauge because of the whole stage cautions and flipping the Anywho, the only problem is if they have a bad New Hampshire, a bad Kansas, they don't have the playoff points, and it comes down to a must-win, they got to deal with SVG. And while Chase Elliott's very good at the Roval, I think this is his best road course, we've seen this team kind of be off at times, and Watkins Glen kind of scared me in regards to Chase Elliott at some of these road courses that he's really good at. So once again, I don't expect them to have that kind of odd race they had at Watkins Glen where they qualify extremely poorly. They can't make their way through traffic, which that's a car thing, but we don't need to get into that on this video. So I don't expect kind of a really bad race like we saw at Watkins Glen, but I think top 5ing at Kansas in the Roval is extremely possible. It's extremely likely, I would argue. And that alone might get them through this round as long as they don't finish dead last at New Hampshire with 0 stage points. And if they're able to do that, they're able to get to the round of 8. They're 1 round away from the championship 4. In this first race, that's the weakness for Chase Elliott. 0 laps led in the next-gen car at Vegas. He has 2 top 10s. Outside of that, it's not pretty. 21st, 32nd, 12th, 33rd. Yeah, Vegas is not a Chase Elliott track. If they can sneak in the top 10, that's a win for them. Because the next 2 tracks are much better for him. And I know there's the randomness of Talladega, and he's not on a William Byron level streak that we talked about yesterday, but it's a pretty good track statistically for Elliott. He won there in 2022. He's actually scored a lot of stage points, including a couple of stage wins at Talladega. And there's a few bad results. There's a DNF in there, but he's led laps in all but 1 race at Talladega in the next-gen car. So Talladega is actually a track that has treated him quite well. He's going to finish well here. He's going to be up front. He's going to lead laps. Chase Elliott in the next-gen car at super speedways has actually been really good. He's won at Atlanta twice. He's won at Talladega. He's led laps at all of them. Chase Elliott could very well go out and win this race, and that would solve the problem of a bad Vegas race or the lack of playoff points. And honestly, he not only could he win here, he could win at Martinsville. We've talked about this whole video how Chase Elliott, he doesn't score a lot of stage points. He hasn't led a lot of laps in recent years. Martinsville is the complete opposite story. He's led 40-plus laps in all but 1 race at Martinsville in the next-gen car. Led 42 this spring. Led 129 last fall. In the first next-gen race at Martinsville, led 185. This guy he's figured Martinsville out. He's going to have some tough competition. Obviously, Blaney has won the last 2 at Martinsville in the fall. Denny Hamlin is elite at Martinsville. Even his teammates. William Byron's really good. Kyle Larson. But I would say Elliott's the best Hendrick Motorsports driver at Martinsville. I don't know if that's controversial, but I would say it. Elliott's going to be a threat to win in these last 2 races of the round. And if they don't collect the playoff points, it may truly come down to a must-win. And honestly, Elliott in a must-win situation at Martinsville, we saw that before. He did it in 2020. So I like Elliott's round of 8 outside of Vegas. I think Vegas could be rough. They could lose some points there. That could be a really bad race for him. But if they're able to execute at Talladega, survive the chaos, Elliott's able to drive like he's driven at Talladega in this car, and then they just have an average at worst race at Martinsville by their standards, they could possibly win 2 of the 3 races in this round. As I said, I think it's going to come down to scoring top 3 stage points in Talladega and Martinsville and top 5 finishes there and a top 10 at Vegas to be safe on points just in case we get, let's say, oh my God, if this happens, but let's say SVG makes it to the round of 8 and he finds a way to get his first oval win at Talladega. Well, that's a guy that's probably going to score less points than you, but he's going to jump you with that win. Well, what if Bubba Wallace wins at Las Vegas? He's really good at Las Vegas. Well, now you got 2 guys above you, and you got to outpoint Kyle Larson. You got to outpoint William Byron. You got to outpoint Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, who you already have a point deficit to. Well, Martinsville and Talladega are the 2 tracks I think Chase Elliott could do it at. And then we go to Phoenix. Elliott's only led 57 laps in the next-gen car at Phoenix. He was much better in the old car at Phoenix, but the results aren't horrid. There's a few outside the top 10. He's got a couple top 10s, no top 5s, so I think that's a crucial part. So they're going to have to pick it up there. They're going to have a really good Phoenix race, but we've seen crazier things happen in a championship race. So to wrap this Chase Elliott one up, round 1. Can't afford any bad races, but I think they should be able to sneak through, or not sneak through, but get through. Round 2 is actually a really good round for them. Kansas and the Roval, I think they're going to be able to do enough to get to the round of 8. Round of 8, Las Vegas and the lack of points could hurt them ultimately, but Talladega and Martinsville are winnable races for this team. Then when it comes to Phoenix, anything can happen. Chase Elliott knows how to win at Phoenix. He knows how to win in this format. He won the first championship at Phoenix. Can he win the last for now at Phoenix? So thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I said, we're doing this for all 16 playoff drivers. I believe tomorrow is Chase Briscoe. So back-to-back days of Chases in the championship cases. Wow, that rhymed. Incredible. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one tomorrow and then any other news that comes up in the NASCAR world.